Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Usability Testing. So we are together for almost 2 hours, and the first part, we will see or discuss together your evaluation or your review for the usability reports from one of the teams that you would have looked. I would say I think you've done it individually, and then we will talk about unmoderated usability testing as well. So that will be the topic for the day. And I hope your week was good. I hope your day was good also. And we're almost on the weekend. So no class tomorrow. You'll have a chance to do some reading or do some catching up. I know you're all very busy. I have been getting some of the participation evaluation. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. For those of you that haven't yet, please do. And you can also choose to add your self-evaluation in your evaluation if you want. I'm definitely interested on seeing where you see yourself, but also what your peers are saying about your participation and your evaluation in the project. Usability testing is not a individual exercise. So many people need to collaborate. So this is not unusual that you are actually going to be working with colleagues at work to put together a successful usability research and study for your clients. So very, very relevant to do this exercise as a team or as a class. Do we have anybody who would like to share with us your findings, or in terms of what did you really like about one of the reports or the study from one of your classmates, and what you think perhaps might be opportunities for improvement? And really the goal of this is for us to have a chance to review, look at a report as a customer. If we were, let's say, good food customer, and we actually look at a report that was real, this is a real report from all the hard work that went into trying to understand, does it make sense to us? And then if it does, great. But if we see opportunities, then how do we help our classmates to improve and get better, so that Good Food or any of your real clients will understand what has happened in the research. The research is important, the findings are important, the analysis is important, but communicating what you have found is as important, if not even more critical. Remember, a bottle, the same wine in a much better bottle that will actually be more appetizing, and versus the same wine that will be in a not so nice bottle of wine. You've done design, you're in design, so you will know this. I'm not teaching you anything new here, but the delivery of a message, which really there's a message that you're trying to deliver, is how did the site perform with the participants? What happened? How good, how bad, how critical? What is good? What is bad? What is critical? The message is very important. And you have a lot of flexibility in what you want the message to be. So there are many ways to jungle with it. So this is really the intent. Do we have anybody who wants to come forward? And there's no right or wrong answer. This is an opportunity for learning. Again, we're in class, right? So we're learning so that we get better when it comes to reporting or delivering a message. Do we have anybody who wants to come forward to share with us, or do I have to pick someone? Up to you.
Are we just sharing what we like about other reports?
Yeah, you can share what you like. If there's something that you think that maybe wasn't clear, you can also share. It's not negative. This is all positive critique. But yes, you may want to start with what you like, what you really like, or what you found, what you've learned. Maybe there's something you've learned that maybe you're going to do different in your report. I don't know. Anything. There's no, it's absolutely up to you.
I like how some groups focus more on, like when delivering their information, they focus more on how it would be presented. So you can see there's lots of like bullet points and tables and graphics rather than just like paragraphs upon paragraphs. And even if there are like paragraphs, they're like separated nice and neatly and they're not too long. So it's easy to look at.
Mm-hmm. Is there one particular report, Destiny, that you've looked at, or it was just what you've seen when you glanced at several of them?
Yeah, most groups did it. Specifically though, I'm thinking about, I think it's StructTube or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one.
Okay. So clear, it was more easier to read in terms of they'll use bullet points, shorter text, not long, and maybe illustration. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, exactly. And then like even when there was, text presented, they're just in nice small paragraphs and sections, so it's easy to find everything and to read everything.
Awesome. Very good observation. In terms of when you look at structure, like I don't know how much of it that you read out from the report, but did you get a good sense of really what some of the issues were with for the structure website?
Yeah, I think I did. It was very easy to understand. I
hmm
had no I had no trouble at all.
Good, good. And again, thank you, Destiny. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. No one's going to get mad at perhaps if we've seen opportunities for improvement. That's particularly fine. Uh, Anybody else? Is there anything that you feel that was very good about some of the reports that you think that you would want to do in your next report?
I like how most teams kind of like personalized their reports to the website that they did. I know that my team has done that as well, but I thought it was really nice to see that everybody else was kind of tailoring to theirs as well.
So, from visually, you mean, Anya, or?
Yeah,
Putting some elements of their brand, right? Speaking
yeah,
almost their language too.
yeah.
Yeah. So why is that important?
I think
Do you
it just
think?
shows like good consistency and that they're paying attention to what the brand is and what they represent. And it just I think it's easier for people that maybe aren't part of the design, like more stakeholders, to
hmm
see that that's something that we're focused on.
Yes, and I think it also shows that you did not just use the template, a generic template. It almost feels that you really wrote the report from scratch, perhaps, right? And it was really written for them, for let's say structure or good food,
Yeah.
perhaps. Maybe some of this is happening too. Awesome. And I think in Destiny's comments about bullet points, short text, short bullet points, examples, I think this goes along well with we've learned about heuristic and in being short or good writing, what is good writing and how people read, right? Or even read on the web, right? We know on the web it's very short, but I do think that more and more of those reports, and you will see they're getting shorter and they're shrinking because you really want them to be actionable. You want the customer to feel that they can actually do something with them. And then they're very clear on when you say that there was a particular issue with a specific screen or a specific label or a specific design element, where was that design element? So I have given every team's feedback, specific feedback on each of your report, and this is exactly how I looked at it. Was when I actually read the report, do I feel that I have a good sense that what the findings were, and how good or bad the web is, and do I also understand clearly where a particular issue or a particular challenge is actually taking place on the web? And when I did go through some of the report, and again, there was not one perfect report. All reports were good, but I did highlight some of the areas for opportunities. And then, for example, there were reports, or there were sometimes instances where we would say that the navigation was cluttered. Then I would say, where was the navigation clutter, and how was it cluttered, and why was it cluttered? You have to put yourself in the position of a client. They know their site, they're very familiar, and obviously they only had a good intention with their site. In fact, they probably don't know that these are issues. So they're very, very interested, and they really want to understand what is the navigation, what is the issue, where, which language, which label as well. So very, very important. And then in the report, as I was going through some of the report, I've noticed that some of the reports would mention quite often I like the participant like, the participant like, and the participant like. It's okay to report on what participant have liked or disliked on the site, but you need also to have a lot of writing in terms of what has happened in the session. So, for example, if we think of structured and trying to find the mirror, and then customer are having challenges, then we do expect to have a lot of descriptive verbs or words that will actually speak of what was happening at that moment and what happened in that experience of trying to place an order for the mirror. And some likes, we can say that when the participant got to the, I don't know, the list or the search, they actually like the particular interface or a particular element. But here's what happened when they were actually getting to the list of items. If there were issues, then we can really be clear on what has happened and what issues, and then subsequently what happened on for the rest of the experience. But you have to always keep in mind the usability research is more about what people do and what happens in the session. Yes, we care about what people like and what people don't like, but we really want to make sure. And I would say that most of you have done good in terms of, for each of your tasking, how many of people were actually successful or not successful. And if they were not successful, what really has happened and why it has happened. And then some of the recommendation as you've done as well that will come along for that particular experience and what they've liked. But, and what I did with some of the, for some of the team, when some of you have said perhaps a particular experience, such as creating an account on Good Food, maybe someone thought it was very overwhelming. But then I would challenge and I would say, in the end, were they successful? Were people still able to create or not create an account? And then that's really what I'm also interested in. If they have, then do we feel that it was adequate? Do we feel that it was an adequate or a normal time, length of time for them to even complete that particular task as well? So this was our first run, our first test, and our first full test from the screening, well, from the heuristic to the screening to the test scenario and conducting, taking notes, analysis, reporting, and communicating findings. So we are going to have now another opportunity with the big project to go through the same set of the same sequence and the same process with real people. So we've learned, and I've got feedback, and I've provided feedback. You'll have an opportunity to take in the feedback and see how do we improve for when we actually go real life with real participants. So I'm well aware that I was not expecting everybody to be at 100% mark on everything. Some teams did better, but I would say that all teams have improved in the process. From the heuristic evaluation to the test material to the delivery, every team has improved, which that makes me really, really satisfied. That tells me that everybody has learned and everybody has gained. And now there'll be the big run. So I will expect to be closer, everybody to get closer to the 100%. Obviously, not everybody is going to have 100%, and not everybody should have 100%. But I expect to maintain and improve as well the level that you were. Now, if there are any questions about any of the feedback that I gave you, please get back to me. Let me know. I'll be happy to sit down with the teams. If need be, we can do a Blackboard session, or we can, if we have time today, if there are some questions, then we can also do it here, or you can reach out to me by course message, and I'll be happy to help you and assist you. So let's move on to unmoderated usability testing. So everything so far that we've talked has been about formal usability testing. Now we're going to move on to the non-moderated usability testing. And so what is unmoderated or non-moderated testing, and when do we do, and why do we do unmoderated versus moderated? So everything that we've done was moderated. Now we're switching gear. So we're going to unmoderated. Do we have anybody who knows what unmoderated or non-moderated testing is? Feel free to use the chat. Okay, so do we understand moderated? What was moderated usability testing? What was so unique about moderated usability testing? Absolutely. So we had moderators. You were there. So you were not physically. So it was remote, moderated testing. You can do non-remote. So you can do in-person usability testing, moderated usability testing. Yes, there's a moderator. So you are there with the participants when they are actually doing the task scenario that you gave them to do. So that is the difference between moderated and unmoderated. That's really the only difference. So you either have a moderator or you don't. Now, why do we have moderator? Why do we have unmoderated? And what are the advantages and disadvantages is really what we are going to be covering in the session. So for this week, we have several readings. Unmoderated user test, how and why to do them. I have another reading that talks about the remote usability test, moderated and unmoderated, and tools for unmoderated usability testing. So there are multiple tools, multiple software, multiple technology. So when you hear unmoderated or non-moderated, it means that the usability testing is actually done with a software. So there are some companies out there, that's all they do for a living. So they are subscription based. So you pay a membership, and it could be monthly membership, it can be annual membership, and there's probably a saving if you do monthly or if you do annual versus a monthly membership. But you're doing usability testing through a software, through a technology that you subscribe. So you become a user of the technology, and then you use that technology to do the usability testing. So you would actually do a unmoderated usability testing of what you did. You could do it through the software online, and then the multiple tools that are available. One of them is user testing. So do we have anybody in a class that has done unmoderated usability testing in the past? Or do we know anybody that has done unmoderated testing, a friend or a colleague? And have you heard anything about what it looks like or what it feels like? So I guess no. And I'll be honest with you. I have most of the testing. I would say 99% of the testing that I have done was moderated. It was moderated usability testing. I did once or twice unmoderated usability testing, and that was at Rogers. So, but most of the usability testing that I have personally done, it's all been moderated. I would say, if my personal opinion about remote usability, moderated usability testing, and when you hear usability testing, you kind of assume that it's moderated. The power of usability testing is the moderation. The power of usability testing is the thinking aloud, but it's being there. It's being there and being able to ask the participant, what is happening? When there's silence, you can wait for the silence and you can say, what is happening, Elizabeth? If Elizabeth is doing the testing, she's a participant. You can ask, so what are you thinking about? So you have an opportunity to kill the silent. Silent is okay, but you can also remind people to do think aloud. But it's the power of also being able to ask questions when something happens that you may not have planned for. Okay, so I would say the analogy with moderated and unmoderated is if you have an open-ended question versus a survey that has yes or no or multiple choices, true or false. You're directing the survey, so you don't have as much opportunities to uncover or discover something new. So you're kind of limited. You kind of moderated testing because you need to be so prepared. Your test, you have to think about almost everything. You have to think about almost every scenario, everything that you want to do. So imagine the complexity of running moderated testing and how sometimes you had to adapt. as you were doing the moderation, as you were conducting, and the things that you've learned in the moderated tasks that you would have not been able to plan for, that you've adapted your moderation. For example, maybe you were planning that for Longy and McCoy, the consumer would all go through shopping and go through the list and add the guitars, and you had a path, but you realized that for some participants, they actually took a completely different direction than you thought they would. You were able to facilitate, you were there, you were able to observe. In the unmoderated task, if the scenario or the task is not there, they're not going to go. And then your structure, you're locked into what you have predefined and pre-designed in your unmoderated test as well. So you have more flexibility in the moderated. And as I said, the power of usability testing is being able to be there and really ask the questions and really continue ask a clarifying questions if you're not really happy, or if you still have doubt about what you've just heard. You can clarify the question too, or you can actually help the participant if they're stuck. But we know that you want to do that as a last resort. But when they're stuck, then you can also help and guide them, which you cannot do in the unmoderation, because they're by themselves too. So I invite you to actually go through the different readings. There's 4 of them, and then we also have I also have a deck that talks about moderated and unmoderated. So the deck kind of does a bit of a recap of moderation. What is moderation, which we've done in part 1 of the class. And then it moves on to the unmoderated. So there are a lot of slides on the unmoderated usability testing deck, and I will not go through all of the slides, but what I have done instead is I have put some key notes in Canvas directly in the Blackboard, sorry, and then that we will review together. I also attached in the lesson for this week there's a guidebook from user testing. So I've mentioned that we have multiple software that you can do unmoderated testing. User testing is one of them. There's another one called UserZoom. There are multitudes, and one of the articles really talks about the tools. So tools for unmoderated. This is Jacob Nielsen. So this particular, I think this is where they have all the lists. This is actually a very good article that compares also them. Talks about the data that is being captured. And then list the tools and list the strengths and the weaknesses of the different tools, but you have a diagram. I've actually pasted the same diagram. But these are all the different tools that you're actually going to come across. And then he does a good job at saying some of them have more qualitative data than others. Let me just share the screen. Actually, we're gonna be able to look at it from Blackboard. So we will get to it, but I really encourage you to read all of them, but that particular one is also a good one that you will like. So are there any questions so far about unmoderated or non-moderated testing? The class is being very quiet today. Perhaps you had a busy or tiring week. Yes, I've been told. I've been told that it's a busy time for a lot of people, for a lot of you. So I would say today's a light session. So I just want to make sure that everybody is fine and there are no questions and you guys are not being afraid of asking or jumping in. With moderation, with no moderation, there are 6 steps. If you remember, do you remember how many steps we had before? Yes, we had 7. So there's one missing, moderation. Everything else that we've learned, you have to do. In fact, you will find out that you have to be even more precise on the screener, and you have to be even more precise on the test scenarios as well. There are reasons for this, but we will discuss that. So in the unmoderated or non-moderated test, there are 6 steps. So you still have to define the study goals. So the study goals which is, why are we doing this study? Why are we doing a usability study for structure? Why are we doing a usability study for good food? So you've already gone through that step, right? We know that there were issues, or we anticipated, and some of you and most of you had hypotheses as well. On the topic of hypotheses, if you had hypotheses in your usability report, I've made that note. If you said, here are some hypotheses that we've had that users will find, or issues that we're going to find, it's important to actually mention the hypotheses at the end too, and come back to your hypotheses and say we validated or unvalidated a hypothesis. So for example, if we say our study goals, we want to see the experience, we want to assess the user experience for good food. We actually have two hypotheses. We think that navigation is really a challenge. Second, we think that the sequence of some of the tasks are actually not as user would expect them. We think that that will create confusions and abandon. So if these are your hypotheses, then you will come back at the end and say, okay, hypothesis one, we said navigation will be a challenge. Well, the study has confirmed that yes, in fact, our hypothesis is valid, or hypothesis is null. We did not find examples where users had challenges with the navigation. On a note of hypotheses, they are also written in the future. So we suspect that navigation will be an issue. Versus we suspect that navigation actually was an issue. A hypothesis is formulated in the future state, or a question, but it's usually affirmation, and then future. It's not something that has happened. We want to validate through our research, right? So I think one set of hypotheses were saying, yes, we discover issues with navigation, where the hypothesis should be. We suspected, and you write the hypotheses are written before you even do the research and you do the study. Important as well. So if you choose to include hypotheses in your final study for your website, make sure that you follow the rule to define, and then you bring them back into your at the end as well of your research of, are they valid, are they not valid. Then with the sixth step, one that you will have to do is also selecting the software. Where are we going to do our non-moderated usability testing? Is the tool that we said that we will use for our assignment. So there is an assignment for non-moderated testing. So it's available on the assignment. Make sure that you actually go through the assignment, but we could probably do that together as well later. You can choose. In fact, I'd like for you to use user testing. But if you know of another tool, use a Zoom, for example, that you'd use or you would like to explore, I'm okay too with that. I'm not really attached to user testing, but you can use user testing if you want, but you can use other tools, but you will have to tell me as well. Then you have to think of your task. You use a user task, user scenario, task scenario, all one of the same. So you have done this, but you're going to have to be even more specific for your non-moderated testing. And then the pilot the test. So what you would do is you will have to do, and there's opportunities in user testing to actually test your plan. So there's a button that says test your plan, and then it actually mimics or simulate the test, the user tool that you will see or you would experience as a participant as well from the tool. Then you recruit the participants. So user testing, it's a paid service. Now, there's a limitation for us. We're obviously not going to be paying. It's $50 per participant that you recruit. Unless someone wants to pay $50 and really do it live, you're welcome to. I will not stop you, but it's $50 per participant that you recruit. So, and I think they have a minimum as well. I'm not 100% sure, but they have a minimum of participants. With user testing or any of those tools, usually they have a set of people. And you, if you wanted, you could subscribe to user testing and say, I want to be in your bank of participants. And then they pay you X amount of dollar per test or per hour or per test that you would do with them, and that's money. So if you have spare time, which I doubt that you have. So the beauty of having a tool or using user testing is they have a pool of candidates, and they always have people that are ready to be participants in a study that the tool will filter out. And this is why we need to have a very, very specific screener so that the tool will be able to really apply the criteria that you will have. And it will look at all of the database of people that have signed up to be participant. They can be a participant. And it will look through the database and say, okay, these people are actually meeting the requirement for good food. And then they have the technology that I'm sure sends them an email and say there's a new research, you looks like you're qualified, and they probably put them through a full screener that you would do, and then they will say yes, you qualify or you don't qualify, and then they probably going to send them a link that says, hey, you're invited to the research, and then you can do the research on your own at the time that suits you. But I'm sure there's a deadline, right? So you will tell the user testing by when the research has to be concluded, by when it has to be completed, and then the participants will have until that day to actually go in and do it on their own. So it's on demand. I would say it's on demand. Then you get the results. You get the results, and the results, depending on what you said that you wanted to be collecting, then we'll have videos, obviously, everything. So the participants go on screen, and then they actually are being recorded, and you can see their face too. You can see them as if you were there with them. And then we also tell them to think loud. So they have a little video that instruct them to think loud. They test their material, and then they actually do the task. And then they have prompts that says, okay, so the test starts with the following, and then the first question may be, we're going to show you a website, and then you have 5 seconds. In 5 seconds, you will tell us what your impressions are. And then the customer will say it verbally, or they're going to go and type it in too. So I believe you have the flexibility to say, I want a recording, or I want the recording and text, or I just want to have the text answer as well. And then it's the next window comes up and pops up and pops into the screen, and they go through the process. And then you get a report, and you get a link to all of that data that you have to do analysis. Now, I have not used user testing or the unmoderated tool. So my team did at Rogers. They were the ones setting up the test. They were the one doing the test. They were doing the one analysis. I was the one getting the report and being told, here's what we found. So I haven't looked at, actually, no, I have remember seeing the list of all the sessions, and you could click and I relook at them. The quality is good. The quality can be also very bad. Personally, having to click and find a lot, and I think the deck, the PowerPoint, the presentation is from the previous teacher, talks also about his own experience with unmoderated testing, and you have to look through a lot of sessions to actually find good sessions. There's good, bad quality, and there are sessions that you can tell that people are just there for the money. Okay, where in moderated, I would say the quality that you get in the moderated, in the lab, in the session, people are coming, people will drive, people will take the subway, people will take time off from work to come to your session. People are a lot more engaged and a lot more serious. So I think the quality, when it comes to moderated, is better quality than unmoderated. But again, they each have their purpose. So as we've said, you run the analysis. I would probably assume that some of the reports, like the demographic, about your screener and the participant and who participated, the time to task for complete, and each of the tasks you would probably get out of the box from user testing or any of those tools. But great, important, but you also want to know what were the issues, And I don't think that there are any ways around but having to look at all of the data. So possibly all of the videos, everything that has happened, and all the text. Maybe the tool has a cloud that will actually read all of the text and say the sentiment. In fact, it has something about sentiment. But you hopefully it will maybe has semantic and look at words, what has been said, what has been typed in, and give you some intelligence around maybe a specific task and what people in general have said or have verbalized or expressed. Or whether or not they were not able to complete the task as well. So you can set the if success or no success as well for a particular test in a particular task. So I would say the data analysis, you may think that it's not as long because the system will do some for you, but sitting there and watching video and clicking on video is all very, very time consuming. Are there any questions or any comments at this point? Okay, I will carry on. So unmoderated studies obviously don't have any interaction between research and participant, which is both their biggest benefit and also their greatest drawback. For the reason that I said, I much prefer moderated. I like to be there and really go deeper where I can go and align and adjust with the participant and really get into their brain, which is really, to me, the power of usability testing. In an unmoderated remote session, the participant completes the study on their own, as we've said. So there are two types of user testing, moderated or unmoderated. I have a quick little graph that talks about remote moderated. So we've done this. This is what we've done. Pros, cheaper than on-site test. Okay, so here's the thing. With user testing, you could actually do moderated, but through the software and be there. So I think this is what this moderated, remote moderated means. It's remote, you're not there. So, but what's confusing is we've done remote moderated, but in their definition, remote moderated is you're using their tool, but you're still there live, and you can also talk to the participants, but you can also be in person too if you wanted. Yes, it's cheaper than on site. We didn't have to get all participants to actually drive to us, right? It's very practical because they're at home, they're in the comfort, they use their computer, their technology, and then you can also visualize the behavior as well. But you can do that when it's not moderated either, because you can review and look at the video. But remote moderated, it's hard to interpret the silences as well. But you can ask, you can probe, you can questions, and we've learned that. And then complicated to know when to ask questions. I think this comes with experience as a moderated. And body language. So you do lose some of the body languages because we only see from that point on. We don't know if someone's like is going like this, if they're becoming agitated. And then we also have the unmoderated pros and cons that you can also use. They're done in the participants environment. It's also low cost and ideal for low budget and tight deadlines. And then disadvantage, there's no support in real time, only used for specific elements. You can't use prototype testing, and it's less realistic behavior. So I would say, when they say it's less realistic, when you use a technical software by themselves, it's people are not necessarily used to be online and have to download. So you have to download a piece of software. When you want to use user testing, you actually have to download a piece of software. We know downloads can cause issues. And also, some participants or some people are not comfortable of downloading. And they may actually just decide not to sign up at all to be a participant. So I think the elimination happens back then. But where it may not feel as natural is you are asked to go to a website. You download or you start the software. And then you have to make sure that you press the recording, and then you have to press next text to go to the next task. You ask to verbalize, and you ask to maybe type, and then you ask to close and finish your browsers. So you're not going through the experience on the website on your own, as if you would if you were by yourself, right? So there's kind of a barrier, or there's something happening between you and the website and the software. So it may not feel very natural at the beginning, but I would say that the people that are doing these tests are probably used to that reality, and I don't think that it's so much of an issue. Important limitation of unmoderated usability testing. So you cannot use a prototype testing. So whatever you're testing has to be fully functional, because you're not there to say, well, this is just a prototype. Oh, this section is not available. Only here is available. It's actually very hard to actually even limit to where they go or where they don't go. So that is one of the drawbacks. So you need to have something that is fully functional. Without a moderator, participants to be less engaged and behave less realistically in tasks that depend on imagination, decision-making, or emotional response. So I would say that, yes, it's less realistic because there's a technology in between. But when you bring someone in the lab, it probably doesn't feel as very natural, but eventually they forget about the fact that they're in a lab situation. If you're a very good moderator, you can actually compensate and help them to actually get more comfortable. And this is why we do the opening of making them comfortable, asking them their habits, asking them why they normally go to a site like Good Food, and if they've gone and what they've done and how the experience was. So we're trying to make them happy. But in the unmoderated, they actually just jump in right away. So it's very, very quick, and then they just in face of a technology. The remote unmoderated usability testing are great when you like to gather very quick feedback. But before that, Steve Krug, which you heard of, has said perfect for quick and dirty usability testing. And there's a link that talks more about what really he meant by this comment. But they're good for very quick feedback. And quickly you can get 100 people in front of your software, in front of your web, going through your scenario and get some data very, very fast, quickly. But again, it depends on the depth and the quality of the data you want. Unless you're looking for a very narrow demographic, a test can be completed by panelists, by people on the same day. Feedback, but then what you will see. So in the readings that I gave you this week, or there are some videos that you can also look. And you will see there are videos that talk about user testing or any other tools if you want. You can explore that on your own. You will often see that they will talk about feedback. You will get feedback. You will see how people will react. Quantitative and empathy. So feedback. Great. Feedback is good. Like, when someone says I like, it's a piece of feedback. Feedback is good, but we want more than feedback. We want to see what happens. Are people able? Are people struggling? Are people having issues? Are people successful at completing their tasks, right? How they react? Great. How did most people react to your, the first time they came to some of your website? And that's a question. So if you remember the first time that every time you ask your participants to come to the web page that you were presenting to them, what was their reaction? Anybody? Were people saying, great website, oh, I love it. It looks very easy to use. It's actually very, very minimalist. Very simple, very minimalist. They were overwhelmed. Yes, absolutely. So their feedback reaction is overwhelmed, right? But you will see, yes, and yeah, I was being sarcastic. The emphasis of user testing or user testing any of those software, at least the video that I've seen, they're often going to talk about feedback and how people react to your web, to the experience. Great, we want to know how they react, but we also want to know how to respond to it and how to behave with it, right? Then the other word that made me worry after going through the documentation of the unmoderated, they use quantitative as well. And then empathy. Empathy is important. Yeah, design thinking, empathy, having empathy and sympathy or empathy for the user when we design. But we still want to know how they actually behave. Now, quantitative. When I say quantitative and using unmoderated user testing with a lot of numbers and a lot of participants, quantitative, what comes to mind, or why is quantitative important? Or what comes to mind when it comes to quantitative and usability testing? Is quantitative importance in user testing? High numbers, do we care? Do we need high numbers in usability testing? I guess that's one of the questions. How many test participants do we need? According to research or according to Jacob Nielsen, and I don't know that we actually spent a lot of time on this. How many participants did we do? in our class. Yeah, 5 is really the number. So I do have a slide that shows this. 5 is the number per participant per group of participant, 5. I would say 3 to 5. After 3, when you get to 3, you're going to start seeing patterns. So when you get to 5, you're really going to see, you're going to start getting a good feel for issues. We've done 4, 6 participants, right? Some of you have done 4 because you were participant of so many participants. You've done 4, but most of them you have done 6. You've got reports of 20, 25, 40 pages, right? So we've got insights with 4 or 6 people. And when you get to 5, usually 5 of people that are very representative, it's a sufficient number. Now, if we're not convinced, Jacob Nielsen has an article that talks about why do we only need 5 users. This is a little curve that shows. So the number of test user and usability problems found. As you increase the number of users, you don't find as many issues. After 5, you see after 6, you start reducing. The percentage of usability found shrinks, is reduced. And also the nature of the problems that are found are not as important or as critical. So very early on, by 5 or 6 users, you will find 85% or impactful user issues. Now, why I think user testing or unmoderated testing, and I remember the first time I heard of unmoderated testing, I was like, well, it's a survey. I think it was there to compensate for people that are still attached to high numbers. Some people have not understood that you don't need to have 100 people. You don't need to have 100 people that tell you that they don't understand in stock, out of stock. You don't need to have 100 people to tell you that when they go to McQuaid, they use with in-store pickup, online on-store pickup. Or they think that X means out of stock, but in fact, it's just delete, remove your purchase. So I think that they're there. Those unmoderated testings are there to comfort clients that are still attached to high numbers. They haven't understood that you don't need to have 100 people. In fact, how many people do you need to fall into a hole before you fix the hole? Think of, if there's a problem on the street and all cars are going through the hole, how many cars do you need when to take an actions? So yes, exactly. But that will be up to you to convince and explain to clients and why. Why is 5 enough? Because it's behavioral basis. And this is why I spend so much attention or time when I see feedback. I didn't like feedback is not enough. Because yes, if it's about feedback, if it's about what people like, if it's about what people do or what people did, and I think I had given that feedback to some of the teams. In some of the sessions, some of you said, so how did you cancel your good food? Or how would you cancel? It's not behavioral based. How I did something happened. So it has nothing to do with is happening today. In my session, can they cancel? Can they not cancel? Or can they actually place a purchase? How would you is nothing to do with the current session. Nothing to do with today, right? In front of the computer. So, and what you say that you will do may not at all be what you will do. So, what you like, what I don't like. If you want to know what the majority of people want, yes, you need to have high numbers. What would you do? What would you do? What did you do when? What did you do? You need high numbers too, because it's opinion-based, attitude, opinions. You need high number, quantitative. Do, show me, do. Place the order, look for the mirror, go through the checkout, do. Find the return policy, find the COVID policy, find the information, find, observation. Is not attitude, it's not what you like, it's not what you did, it's not what you would, it's actually what you do. What can you not do? And this is what is really key. Otherwise, you're surveying, and otherwise you need a lot of people. And that's maybe why some people are using user testing. So they're not clear on what it is that they're trying to do. So I think some people are using user testing to get attitude and not so much about behavior. And you will see You can use user testing. In some of the videos, I encourage you to look at them. In some of the videos, you can do user testing. You can use unmoderated user testing when people receive their package. So let's say that we were good food. We could use user testing for people to actually film themselves when they get the package, when they open the package, when they look at the instructions in good food, how they actually prepare their food, their meal, what they're saying. You could use user testing too. And you need, I would say you probably need a lot of people to do this because it's what you like, what they don't like. But maybe there's confusion too. Maybe someone is actually confused with the instruction. If 5 people are confused with the instruction, you need to do something about it as well. So you can use user testing for this, for real reaction to when they get something, when they get their good food box and what they do with it. So it's not only for a website. That's really the message. It's not just for a website, but for those, to see people's reaction, to see how they like and they don't like. At that point, when they get the package, the box, their initial impression, you will need to have a lot of people through your user testing. But then when you're online, you don't need to have all these users. So I have shared with you, and some of you I'm sure have seen this, but my notes, my personal notes to what I have when it comes to unmoderated, non-moderated testing. So I wanted to share them with you. I already said some. The true power of usability testing is in the observation. It's being there, being able to moderate the think aloud element and remind people to think loud. How often did you have to remind your participants in some of your sessions to think loud? Were they doing it very easily? Right? Some people were not even doing think loud. Some of the participants were not really doing think loud too. So it's not natural. Think loud is not natural. So think loud is also not natural. In person, moderated, non-moderated, it's not natural. So you'll have to remind people. A second thing, I think unmoderated is there for respond to people that are still attached to a large number. And then I've said usability testing, 5 is enough. In usability testing, we're not particularly interested in feedback, but we want to see them in action, is what we see. When should a remote unmoderated usability test can be conducted? So I've already kind of give you the answer to that. When is a unmoderated usability testing done in a life cycle, design, redesign? So let's say a new design. When we want to do a new design, nothing exists. It's brand new. At what point can we use unmoderated usability testing? Well, the answer is on screen. It's when you have a live site, right? I said we cannot do prototyping because there's nothing to actually even connect to. And then you need to have a live site. Now, and you can also do, you could do a prototype, but it has to be like really, really advanced, but it has to be somewhere hosted. It has to be available somewhere. So it cannot be paper prototype, but it has to be like a functioning prototype. But I would say, I would probably stay away from doing prototype type testing on user testing, unless you're really testing something very, very, very specific. It's very isolated. Maybe it's one element. Maybe it's a button. Maybe it's a label. Maybe, and then you want to get specific feedback on people. Maybe it's a label and you ask people to tell you what they think the label is. You could use user testing for this too. I don't know what the cost is, to be honest. I don't remember what the cost is for user testing. Well, I said it's 50 people. I don't know that it depends on the size of the number of tests that you have. But would you pay $50 per person to know if a label is a good label or not? I would say no, use A/B testing. So we will talk about A/B testing very soon. I would use A/B testing for that. And A/B testing is a very powerful form of testing too. You get high numbers, and it's easy to isolate items too. We talk about the real world experiences, unboxing a product, or instructions, sending instruction to someone. How do you actually read an instruction? How do you assemble? I don't know if IKEA does user testing. Can you imagine user testing on an IKEA assemble box? and more. So there are other than just a website. Remember, those are unmoderated, so the task must be written very clearly, as you will not be there to moderate the sessions. And that's the really, really important piece. So in the assignment, you'll have to rethink about your screener to be really, really specific. And you have actually going to have to write a full screener. And then the user test scenario, you'll have to rethink about, are the user test scenarios specific enough, detailed enough, without guiding them, but detailed enough that you will go, or you will know that they're actually going through the test in the scenarios that you want them to. So you're going to need to be more detail oriented in the test scenarios that you have. You were there to moderate, so you knew the questions, you knew the things. We don't want to ask questions, but there were certain things that you had to ask or you had to do. So you're going to have to think back and say, what do I need to add to my unmoderated so that I get one? And how do I ask this particular thing? And but without asking the question, and that's going to be the trick. Now, what I'm sharing with you is the type of data. So we've already kind of talked about the types of data that are collected by unmoderated testing. So there's qualitative, and then there's the other circle for quantitative. So I would say there are more tools that are qualitative, and I would say that's good, because we don't, if we think of usability testing, we don't really care about quantity. We're more about quality. And but we can have quantitative with pretty much all of the tools anyway. But these cloud, look back, user brain are more about qualitative. They don't necessarily have quantitative data. And then user testing is in the middle. So it has qualitative, it has quantitative. It can find you a lot of data like test to complete, performance, success rate. You'll have all these options. You can actually pick and choose from the tool. Then Usability, so UserZoom. I've used UserZoom, but I have subscribed to user testing as well for this class. And I have a window of 14 days. So that's the other thing, is some of the tools have a very, very short window of free trial for you to see and be able to test and set. But you're not going to be able to test or push live to participants unless you want to pay $50. User testing has a free version trial to create your test to the point that you could actually put your credit card for. It's only good for 14 days. So you probably want to make a note. The assignment, I think, is due for April 16th. So you have to consider that you have 14 days to actually do your setup the way that you would want, and then give me the screenshots of your setup. You're up to the credit card, but you don't put the credit card. But obviously, we're not going to be able to do analysis. So we're doing hypothetical testing, but there are steps that we can do, and that is describing the assignment. What else? All participants in unmoderated studies are people who are willing and are able to install a browser. So there's a browser that needs to be installed. If your target audience includes a lot of users who will not opt to participate in this type of research, you'll need to use other method to find and observe those people. Now, the people that are subscribing to user testing are willing to do user testing. So, but you have to think about, is user testing adequate or not adequate? Is unmoderated adequate or not adequate? And the timing. But I would say, if it's about quantitative feedback, it's not usability testing. So if it's high numbers that you want to get, and it's through online observations, through usability testing, I would say no, do moderate it. It's the wrong reason. And I'm in favor of moderated testing. So if it's going to take 3-4 weeks to get better quality data for 5 users, or 10 or 15, depending if I have 1, 2, or 3, I will spend that time. It's worth better time than I would say unmoderated trying to do it fast. There are other tools to unmoderated for high numbers. User testing is one of them. Surveying is one of them as well. So you probably all have done surveying, online surveys, as adequate. And as I said, in my career, I've done moderated testing or A/B testing or online surveying very effectively. I've done moderation twice, unmoderated twice, sorry. finally, some research questions are better answered with a completely different type of study. So we've set A/B testing, 5-second test, interview, field study, card sorts, tree tests. I never heard of. You maybe just something you want to do. There are clicks. There are the links you can click on. We will review A/B testing together in a topic, and then the interview you've done, field study, card sorting you've done. You should always figure out which method is best, and then there's a link, and I think they're all Jacob Nielsen links as well. That will take you to some comparisons of unmotivated. Okay, let's quickly look at the deck. Are there any questions or any questions or any comments about unmoderated user testing? Is it a little bit more clear of what it is and what it's not? Hopefully it is. So, is unmoderated better than moderated? I would say it depends on what you're trying to do when it comes to moderated and unmoderated. Now, the limitation with unmoderated, we are not going to be able to do the study and have really the 5 websites, each of the site at each of the team, and get the real study and see what you will get in terms of quality. That's unfortunate, but there's no way other if you want to pay. So it's going to be hypothetical, but I can tell you the quality of unmoderated is not the quality that you get in moderated session. So me, when I look at the quality that I have seen, and yes, maybe it's fast, but it's fast and cheap, right? We often say fast and cheap. Time consuming, fast and cheap, because you have to review the data and the quality is not there necessarily. I have much better value from A/B testing. I actually have better value from even surveying, and much better value with moderated in the room. But you need to learn about unmoderated, that it's available and it's an option, and you have to get a feel for it if you were to set it up. And you'll have to set up an account. And as I said, the account is it's good for user testing. It's good for 14 days. So you will have to make a decision of when do I want to create the account? And when I create the account, I have about 14 days to at least do the setup, do the screenshot, so I can see that you've gone through as far as you could up to your credit card, and I can see your test scenarios. But you can prepare your screener for better screener, for more detail, as if it was more of a questionnaire for your screener. You can rethink your test scenario as well. But I would say your test. So you could do a debrief. You could actually debrief as a team and think about what are we going to do different, and then start from the screener. What should we add to our screener? And then what should we add or modify to our test scenario in your debrief? And then you can install. One of you could actually. There's 4 or 5 of you, maybe only one, and as a team, one creates the account. You all go into user testing, you share screen, and then you get a feel for it. And then you say, okay, so based on what we see in the tool for a screener, this is what we'll adapt. And then you do the same thing with testing. But you have like a 14 days per use trial that you create. But if you're going to be 4, then each one can do one, and then for 2 weeks, you all look at the same account. Perhaps you share the user ID as well if you want. So maybe one member on the team creates one account, you all share. And then when the 14 days is expired, then you ask someone else to, but you all have to share. I mean, that's maybe an option too. But you're not going to be able to push live. You're not going to be able to have real people, and you're not going to be able to get data. That's unfortunate, but you will get enough to understand what unmoderated should do and what it will do. My preferences is moderated testing. So now the deck has 28 questions. So let's see if there's anything here that we should highlight. So the first slide talks about remote. everything that we've done is remote, obviously. And then moderated, unmoderated. So we talk about pros and cons of moderated, unmoderated. Yes, so speed, volumes, but we don't care about volumes, right? Speed, but speed for not as good quality, but volumes, we don't need volumes. When I hear volumes, we're trying to do something that has nothing to do with usability testing. Since you don't have to be there to moderate a session, participants just do a session when they are free in session, 15 to 20 minutes. Well, there's so much you can get in 15, 20 minutes. So they've said that unmoderated is good for very short, specific questions that you may have. So maybe you want to get someone to a screen and you want to get as much information of their reaction and feedback about that screen. Maybe you want to ask them, what is that particular thing? What is that particular label, what the label means, and that's it. It's very, very isolated to, as opposed to the entire experience of shopping. Maybe it's the listing, maybe it's the filter, maybe it's the filter. So it's the way to describe it. It's better when it's really isolated to one really particular element of the experience. Yes, you can get high number, but at that point, you're just getting high number. You're getting what people think, what people like, what people would do, but it's not necessarily what they do, right? So I think it's still very subjective and very impression as well. Remote usability testing. You're not there. You can't really realign. And the tool has a way that you can do a test, so you can actually see what the participant will see, and then you adapt. It's a bit tricky at the beginning. There's something about what is the entry page, what is the starting page, and then if you've never seen it, you're not going to know. So you're going to have to get a feel for it. So I would say, very early on, one of you should create the account and share, and then everybody should be able to go in and see what it looks like and get a feel for it on user testing. And you will see what I mean. So it says what is the first landing page, the first page that they see. And then they already give you by default some tasks and some questions. So you can have on user testing, for each of user tasks, you can have the same question asked after. And then they give you a bank of questions you can pick. And you can update them if you want. And then the scale is there. You can choose the scale. There's a lot of things that you can do as well. So you're going to have to go in and then explore. And then there's more about unmoderated and getting buy-in. Well, I think getting buy-in for usability testing is something that you can read on your own. The more you will do, the better you'll be able to speak about it. And then this deck was put together by the previous teacher as well. So he speaks about his experience, and then you can leisurely read about it too. Okay, what else should we know? Okay, so that is really it for the readings and for the PowerPoint. Now in the lab as well, there are some elements about how you can launch a user testing unmoderated on a desktop or also on an app. And then there's something that you need to do particularly for an app. There's something we need to do particularly for desktop. So when it comes to use mobile testing can be a bit tricky in the lab because you need to have a camera so that you can see the participant using the tool as well. And but now some of the tools like Zoom, I think, can be mobile sharing, and you can share what you have on your mobile and you can see, I believe. So that was added on Zoom. But I don't know if Blackboard allows it, or I don't know if any other tool like Zoom also supports that you can share mobile and you can see what people are doing on their mobile devices. In a lab mobile, you need to have a cam that shows almost like the participant on their mobile. And there's like a TV, so depending on the angle that is. But it's hard not to do the mobile testing. So there in the lab, what I will have you to do is, I would say really, there's no other way than we go through each of the items. So DIY means do on your own method. So yes, I can use Skype, you can use Hangouts, you can use Join Me, you can use WebEx, Zoom, you can use Blackboard, right? When you do the remote moderated, but when you do the you know what? I should probably remove this because that will confuse. I don't want to confuse the moderated and moderated. This particular element came also from the previous teacher. Doop. Okay, so we have a list in the lab that talks about, let me just close this element. I'm gonna have to come back again. Okay, so I give you a list, loop 11, user Zoom, user testing. We are using user testing. There are links, read links to resource from usertesting.com. There's a 25-minute video tutorial. So I highly encourage you to look at the tutorial. Then how you could launch app, how you can launch a desktop. And then I have a link to review number 4 assignments. So the number 4 assignments, we can go through the assignment now if you want. So you tell me, do you want to have a bit of time to go through some of the readings, and then we can talk about the assignment on Wednesday, or we can talk about the assignment high level at this point? Any preferences?
I was typing it out, but I'm so slow today. But I don't know. I'd prefer going through the assignment today. I don't know about everyone else.
At least I can introduce you to the assignment. I kind of did. I'll introduce you slowly to the assignment, and then after this, you'll have and then you can ask questions next week, and then you'll have the rest of the day. You can start. Maybe one team member will create an account. You guys can share and at least log in, get a feel for it. You'll see, this is not a very difficult, I would say, assignment. And then, yes, some people have left, but it's being recorded, right? So they can always look at the recording. Let's look at the assignment. So this particular assignment is 15% of your mark. Okay. Okay. So we're gonna glance at the unmoderated. Yeah, just have to share it. Okay, it is individual, but you can work on the screener if you want. You can work on the task, but everybody has to submit on their own as well. So you will be marked individually, but if you want to work on the screener, you should debrief and you should work, but everybody has to submit individual, and I will read it as individual assignment. The assignment will review your knowledge of overall unmoderated usability testing methodology. You will plan and simulate a remote unmoderated usability study using usertesting.com. You will work individually during and in between classes. So if we need to do some lab about unmoderated, then we can, but you will most likely need to do it outside of class. You will each submit an individual submission as your assignment deliverable. Requirement, use the same website from previous assignments. So you're all going to use Zara, Mini in a Box, your respective website. Okay, explain why and when you would use your unmoderated usability testing for your study. So I need you to explain to me, why would you use unmoderated? So that is 3 points. Then you have to submit a revised screener. You will need a proper and thorough screener to be used. So I need to see a detailed screener questionnaire. And you also need to tell me how many people you need, right? And then you will require a proper screening document. You will not be able to use the classmates at this time around. And provide a Word document and screenshot from user testing. So you need to give me what your screener is, and then I need to see screenshots. Once you're in user testing, I need to see the screenshot of where you have set up your screener as well. But this will all make sense when you get it. And I want everything all in a PDF, all in one document as your submission. But you'll see there are multiple components to it. Then you have to submit a revised test scenario. Remember, those are remote unmoderated. So the test must be written very clearly as you will not be there to moderate. The more details you put into, the better. That's really the key. You can reuse planning materials, but you should be making refinements to your screener and test plan based on feedback that you receive from round 1. So I expect you to improve your test scenario based on feedback that I have given you along. Same thing with screener, right? Some of you may have said something particularly about the participants. Then make sure you integrate the feedback. You can choose to include questionnaire, like a pre-questionnaire, a post-test questionnaire, after each task if you want, or at the end. If you do, then you need to tell me, and then I need to see where you would set it up in user testing too. So once you go in, it will make sense. Then I want you to do a dry run with a test participant. Actually, you're not going to be able to do a dry run with a test participant, but you will be the test participant in the dry run of in-user testing. You'll be able to say, test your plan. And then what I want you to do is I want you to note, what did you learn during the dry run? What did you modify as a result? You will discover things as you do your dry run. So I want you to make note of what is happening, what happened during your dry run. What did you change during the dry run too? Then provide screenshots of what participants will see. So I want you, so when you do your dry run, you have to screenshot every step in the dry run, so that, because that will be what the participant will see too. So I need to see it, because remember, we're not going live, and there's not going to be any way for us to go live or for me to even simulate it and see it. Explain the limitations of unmoderated usability testing in your own words, and that is for 3 points, and then you will not be able to publish your test for free. Stop there. So, and then I say, in normal life, you would have audio, video, along with reading responses to questions we need to be watched and analyzed after sessions are completed for analysis. Obviously, we're not going to have to do that. Yes, this is all-in-one submission. Then you would run this study with 5 participants, right? Normally. And this is an informal study research. So you would submit a summary report only. And that was from the previous assignment. The previous teacher, I don't know how he did. I reached out to user testing. He got a promo code for free to be able to do the real things. But I reached out to them, never heard of them. Maybe they become a little bit snubby. They're getting more businesses. But we're not going to be able to do any reporting, obviously. So I know. And if one of you is successful at reaching out to them and say, I'm a student, I'd like to have a free account, by all means, you guys can do it. You're on your own. You could say, hey, we're students. Please, we're students. I said, well, I'm a professor. The students will learn about you too. They'll promote it. They'll sell it. And they're like, no answer. They're so rude. I actually send them like 2-3 emails and went dead. Usually they're fast. If it's Salesforce, they will chase you. They'll call the police on you. And then normally you would have links to your sessions, your video, and then you would have fuller resources available for user testing. But we're not going to be able to do any of the things that are in normal life, but it had to be there, right? Submission details. So all in one, if you're making references to why is unmoderated, or if you're using internet for some of the answers, why, when, and the benefits, and if it's not from you, then make sure you put a reference to it. But I want to hear it from you. Then the evaluation criteria will be usability testing materials complete. So I will be looking for, is everything complete or everything in order based on what I see and based on what I know that we can do. The level of detail provided is appropriate, so including screenshots. So I need to make sure that you're giving me the details that I expect according to the requirement. The information provided reads and flows easily. The test will be ready to go live in real life. So I want to make sure that you will be at a point where you can actually go live. Professionalism, adherence to assignment requirements. Are you giving me everything that I want? And the answers to question, which is total 12 points for 42 marks, and that's 15% of your total mark. So that was our first read through the assignment. And yes, it's all in one document. So for me, it's easier. And I would say a PDF. So it's going to be all in one. Yes, it's going to be long, but you're going to need to make sure that it flows and it's easy for me to actually understand and see that you've done as far as the credit card. And I feel that you would have enough information to be able to do the unmoderated. User testing. User testing is there. It's in the reading for today, and also I believe it's in the assignment too. But it's user testing, and there's a link to it as well. So I can show you. I think I have it. Usertesting.com. So I'm going to log in. I will quickly show you. Hopefully, I still have access. They have a lot of documentation, a lot of materials, a lot of documentation, a lot of videos. So I highly encourage you to read it. So I still have 11 days. And you could probably sign up too to be a participant, and because they actually ask you to do some testing, and then you'll get a feel for installing, right? This is just going to be good for you, but what's important is for you to understand why and the limitations. Yes, it's $49 per video per participants. So when this is a video, it's a per participants being recorded in session. So again, if anybody wants to reach out to them and get a free trial and say I'm a student, please do. Maybe you'll have better success than I do. That it will be fun because you could really do the real things. But I will tell you, you don't need to do a real thing to understand it. I teach, yes, find them on Twitter or call them, whatever. Be creative. Maybe some of you will be more seductive than me. And then I teach Google AdWords in another school. Like, how do we set up Google Ads, paid advertising? And we don't create paid advertising. We don't have budget. The school doesn't give us budget. But we can go as far as putting the credit card. So if you're successful, by all means, perhaps we can all share that same login. Then whoever is successful, maybe we give them 5 points. Ooh. That would be fun, right? So if someone manages, but let me share with you what you see. So this is my test. Yes, 49, and then you can see that I have one in draft. So hopefully it's still there. Roots Canada. So I've pretended that I was creating a test for Roots, just to give you a bit of a feel. But they have so very good UI. You see my review test, so you can say I can review my test. But let's see, this is where I was actually setting up a test with Roots, and then my participants. So this is what your participants will kind of look like. So perhaps the sooner you log in and you see what options are, you could use user testing panel. So it is by default their panel, so they're people. But you can say how many participants do I want? What type of device should the participant use? And I would say, just for now, just focus on computer. But, oh, and this is so hard. Yeah, this is weird. So your range is like this. You see, it's visually. You can say 30 to 50 as well. Then you have your age filter. So I want screenshots, but I want your screener, like almost like a questionnaire version of your screener. And then I like to see the screenshot that match with that too. And then I can say self-employed. Does it make a difference? Maybe it doesn't make a difference. Countries, your filter, your web expertise. And then what do I do when I see web expertise? You see, this is very vague, right? Test frequency. So maybe they have a way that they actually exclude people that have done tests too often. Some people, that's all they do, right? Maybe you want to include, I don't know. So I don't know if there's documentation around this. Hopefully there is. And then your demographic, pro. So you probably need to be a professional to have access to those. Oh, this is where, oh, this is bad UI. Did you guys see what happened? This is really bad UI because as you select, things are appearing, but they're not on view. So web expertise, average user, advanced user, then your test frequency. These things have appear on the left, but you don't. I don't see them. I don't see that they were added. And I was like, what is test frequency? So it's bad UI. You missed it? Okay, so let me do it again. So I didn't know what test frequency was, Miriam, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna select, but I thought that something would actually appear here on screen for me below test frequency. I thought something would show and say, oh, make a selection. No, test frequency is now available here, but I didn't see that there was something there. Yes, I know, right? They need user testing, and then screener questions. So you can ask screener questions, and then you can add more specific screener question. Have you been to Good Food, or do you use a Good Food site, similar site, right? Are you familiar with McQuaid, Longy McQuaid, and maybe you want to make that a criteria? Yeah, it's bad, bad, bad. So play, you'll have to play, and then you can preview your screener too. Oh, and then I can say, are you a Good Food customer? Then yes. See? No. This is fun, isn't it? Yes. And if they say no, maybe you don't. Maybe you reject and you accept. Maybe you're going to say, I need 5 of those customers. Right? See? So you're going to have fun. Maybe this will inspire you for being more precise in what you want. Now, web expertise, we've seen what happened. Okay, job role. Let me ask you the question. Is there a role or a job role that you would want to not include in your next study with the real people? Based on what we've learned in our class when we do usability testing with designers. What did we end up getting a lot of feedback from us in a class? What was the feedback? We were getting a lot of feedback or a lot of comments that were very specific to what? Anybody has a hint? What are we? Who are we? Us, students. Which program are you in? Yes. When we are a designer, designer, when we look at a website, we look at it very much from a design. Jade? What happens when we actually go through an experience like Good Food as a designer? Do we see more design elements? Do we care more about design elements? Do we have a tendency to actually do a lot of comments about design? We saw a lot of that, right, into our comments in the class, which is normal. When you would want to exclude, here's the thing. You want to exclude usually from your study. When you go external, you want to exclude people that are web designer. You want to exclude web developer. You want to exclude people that are even in marketing. You probably want to exclude people that are in the industry. So you probably want to exclude people that work for, let's say, a telecommunication company. You would want to exclude people that work for Good Food. You would want to exclude people that work for their competitor. You would want to exclude people that work at StructTube. So one of your screening questionnaire should be, do you work for StructTube? Yes, reject. What is your role? And in role here, I would say, when I say job role, then I see I could start here. I can say I'm going to remove information technology, marketing, media communications, and then so that I'm hoping that the design will be out as well. So it's just the feedback that we get is really designed, and we don't necessarily want design. We don't necessarily want a feedback from someone who's going to tell me exactly the color of my background. That's not necessarily very all insightful to what you're trying to do, if people are able to place an order or not. So we're kind of biased, we're tainted. Okay, what else do we have? So it says the test plan summary, and then I think I can say edit. Oh, this is a fun part too. Starting URL, I told you, the starting URL. When users start the test, this URL open automatically for participants. See example. The starting URL is where participant before the test begins. This could include your website, a competitor website. Consider potential issue resulting from authentication redirects firewall. Okay. A blank page. Maybe you just want a blank page, or you require a participant on mobile device to use. We don't care about mobile. We're just doing desktop. So I put roots. I said, I'm just going to start. The starting point will be roots. Then the scenario. Set the scene and tell people what they need to know to do the task. See example. Imagine that you want to buy a gift for a friend. You need to buy it to them. These are your tests, your user scenario. And then it gives you a canned text. You will be forming an activity on the website and then ask to rate your experience. Please remember to clearly explain your thought and actions out loud. And I think as a test participant, one of the first things that you see when you download the tool or you invite it, you see a video that says, Think Loud. What is Think Loud? So this is why I said, install the tool and subscribe to maybe be a participant too. And you will see a bit of that experience. It will just going to help you to be more confident. And then the test plan starts. First 5-second test. You'll be shown a page for 5 seconds and then ask 3 questions. So that's going to be their first task. Similar to what you did. But you could ask a test scenario. Oh, and then verbal response. Then it says, without leaving the homepage, what are your initial impressions of the website? Explain your answer. These came pre-selected, but you can duplicate, you can remove, you can move. And then task, you're interested in buying some pens. So verbal, I want to put the verbal. So it's drag and drop. And then I have my first task, and then there's a rating scale, blah, blah, blah. And then it says how difficult, how confident. And then you move on to your second task. So where is my second task? You're in, oh, yeah. So I said, buy some pens, but buy some pens. I want it to be here. I want it to be here. So this is where you have fun. You play with the order that you want. Buy some pens, and then I say, oh yeah, and then I say the second, I say buy your pens, and then I want them to go in through the buying experience of buying pens. And then what happens is they will go, and then the test is being loud. And then the next task will be, you're interested in returning an item, what are your options? So this is where you see your user task. And then you can have rating. Overall, this task was. Overall, I'm confident that you're completed, you know, completed. So you could say, I'm going to ask these questions, the rating scale task, after each of the tasks. So I would move then this task. But you just have to consider the length, right, of your study. Then you have choice, disagree, blah, blah, blah. And then you can play with that as well. So, and then you can add assets. I don't know what it does. You can add tasks, 5-second task, verbal response. Task, popular example, they have some example, include post-test questionnaire. Then if you want to include post-test questionnaire at the end, then you can have these if you want to do as well. And then you can say, I want to preview, and the preview test plan will is your dry run if you want it, okay? So, and done. I think there's no point to talk more about this until you guys go in and get the feel for it. But I would say the first thing you should do as a team is have a debrief on what would you do different if you were to do usability testing. What would you do different? And then start using some of that into your unmoderated, and you will need to use some of that for your big final project as well. So it will be good time spent. Then choose to create an account. Maybe one of you create an account on user testing, share it. Then you can all log in, get a sense. You can work on some pieces together if you want, but it's all individual submissions. I have to have individual answers as well. I think you guys will appreciate being able to do it on your own. The answer question need to be done individually, and then that's going to be it. So the date for submission for this assignment is, let me just be sure. I think it's April 15. So you have until April 15, but don't wait. Don't wait too long. Try to do it as close as possible. Get rid of it. Then you're going to be able to focus on the big project, because really after this assignment, you have the big usability testing, and we're going to have audit as well for accessibility. So I would say the quicker you do it, then you're going to be able to focus on the final big project. And the accessibility audit is not a difficult assignment either. And then next week, we are going to be talking about, it talks about click on time and timeout test and A/B testing. We're probably going to be talking about A/B testing, which I've done a lot, and it's a very, very valuable form of research as well. Okay. Any questions or comments about unmoderated usability testing? So, okay, not so far. So please take the time to go through the readings, the test. If we need to schedule in some time for the lab next week to talk about the unmoderated, then we can, okay? So I will go based on your level of comfort for how much time we will spend on the unmoderated for next week. And then, so go on your own. If you have any question, make notes, and then we can discuss, or you guys can send me a course message, or we can discuss it next week as well. And then next week, we will talk about A/B testing, or we're going to talk about unmoderated, depending on where you are. But A/B testing is actually fun. It's easy. We're not going to be able to do an A/B test. But you will learn a lot from the technology, the methodology of A/B testing. And I was going to say something, but I forgot. Yeah. So enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you next Wednesday. And for those of you that have not sent the participation evaluation, please send it to me. Okay? Bye, everybody. Have a good afternoon.